The massive Imperial warships moved slowly through the dark emptiness of space, their blue engines glowing like distant stars. Commander Thylan sat in his command chair, watching the endless void through the main viewport. For 3 weeks, his fleet had been scanning dead systems on the edge of known space, looking for anything useful the Empire could claim. "Sir, we're approaching sector designation Zeta 447, announced Lieutenant Crix from the sensor station. "This system has been marked as a dead zone for over 2,000 years. No life signs, no energy readings, nothing worth investigating." Thylan nodded, already bored by another empty system. The Nexus Empire had been expanding for centuries, always hungry for new worlds and resources. But lately they found only dead rocks and empty space. "Run a standard sweep and move on to the next system," he ordered. Suddenly the ship's alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed across the bridge as officers scrambled to their stations. "Commander!" shouted the sensor operator, his voice filled with excitement and confusion. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the inner system. This doesn't make sense. The records say this place has been dead for millennia." Thylan jumped from his chair and rushed to the sensor displays. "What he saw made his blood run cold. Huge structures orbited a bright yellow star, clearly artificial and definitely not ancient ruins. These looked active, alive, and impossibly advanced. "How big are those structures?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "The largest one is roughly the size of our home moon, sir. And there are dozens of smaller ones, all connected by what appears to be some kind of energy network." The technology readings were unlike anything in Imperial databases. The structures seemed to use familiar energy patterns mixed with completely unknown designs. It was as if someone had taken Imperial technology and improved it beyond recognition. "Move us closer, but keep weapons ready," Thylan ordered. As the fleet approached, something incredible happened. Massive defensive systems suddenly came online around the mysterious structures. Energy barriers appeared from nowhere, and weapon platforms emerged from hidden locations with deadly precision. "Sir, they're locking onto us," the weapons officer called out. "Multiple targeting systems are tracking our ships. These defenses are more advanced than anything we've ever seen." Thylan felt his heart racing. Whoever built these structures was still here, and they were ready to fight. "All ships maintain distance and prepare defensive positions. Communications, start broadcasting our standard first contact message on all frequencies." The unknown defenses held their targeting locks, but didn't fire. They were waiting, watching, deciding whether these Imperial visitors were friends or enemies. For the first time in his career, Commander Thylan realized his mighty fleet might have found something stronger than the Empire itself. The yellow star continued to shine peacefully, while two civilizations faced each other across the darkness of space, neither knowing that this moment would change the galaxy forever. The Imperial communication systems crackled to life with a response that left everyone on the bridge speechless. A clear, confident voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, the official language of the Nexus Empire. "Greetings, Imperial Fleet Alpha 9. This is Captain Minho of the New Terra Defense Council. We welcome you to our system and appreciate your patience with our automated defenses. Please stand by for diplomatic contact." Commander Thylan stared at the communication panel in disbelief. "They speak our language perfectly," he whispered to his officers. "How is that possible?" Within minutes, a sleek vessel approached from the orbital structures. The ship moved with impossible grace, seeming to bend space around itself as it traveled. Its hull gleamed with an unknown metal that shifted colors like liquid mercury. "Sir, that ship just appeared on our sensors," reported the tracking officer. "It wasn't there a second ago, then suddenly it was right in front of us. Our instruments can't explain how it moved so fast." The human ship docked with the Imperial flagship, using technology that made their own docking systems look primitive. Energy fields formed a perfect seal between the vessels, and artificial gravity flowed seamlessly from one ship to the other. Captain Minho stepped aboard with a small team, and the Imperial crew got their first look at the mysterious humans. They appeared completely ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces that showed intelligence and curiosity. But their equipment was anything but ordinary. Minho carried a small device that projected holographic displays in the air without any visible power source. His team wore clothing that seemed to shift and adapt to the ship's environment automatically. Most shocking of all, they moved with the easy confidence of people who belonged among the stars. "Commander Thylan, I presume?" Minho said with a warm smile, extending his hand in an ancient human greeting. "We've been monitoring your communications for quite some time. Fascinating language you've developed. Very efficient for interstellar coordination." Thylan shook the offered hand, noting that Minho's grip was firm but friendly. "You've been monitoring us for how long?" "Oh, several decades now," Minho replied casually, as if discussing the weather. "We've been curious about your empire. Your expansion patterns are quite impressive, though we noticed you tend to avoid systems like ours." The Imperial officers exchanged nervous glances. This human spoke as if their mighty empire was simply an interesting neighbor, rather than the dominant force in known space. Minho gestured to his ship visible through the viewport. "Would you like a tour of the Pioneer? I think you'll find our technology interesting. We've had to become quite creative during our isolation." As they walked toward the human vessel, Thylan noticed something that made his skin crawl. The ship's walls seemed alive, adjusting lighting and temperature as they passed. Gravity remained perfectly stable, even as they moved between different sections, and the air felt cleaner than anything on Imperial ships. "This is impossible," whispered one of his officers. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours," Minho overheard and chuckled. "We prefer to think of it as differently developed. When you're alone in space, you learn to solve problems in creative ways." The shuttle ride to New Terra Station left the Imperial delegation speechless. Through the transparent hull, they watched an impossible sight unfold before their eyes. Massive space habitats rotated slowly in the void, each one larger than most Imperial cities. Gardens and forests were visible through transparent sections, creating patches of green life in the darkness of space. "How many people live here?" Commander Thylan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Minho smiled proudly. "About 15 million across our 23 worlds and stations. Not bad for descendants of a single colony ship, wouldn't you say?" The numbers didn't make sense. A single colony ship typically carried maybe 50,000 people. How had they grown so large and spread so far? As they approached the main station, Thylan noticed something incredible. Dead, barren planets in the distance were covered with blue oceans and white clouds. Artificial suns hung in space, providing light and warmth to worlds that should have been frozen rocks. "Those planets," he stammered, pointing through the viewport. "They're alive. How did you make dead worlds come to life?" Dr. Sohi, a cheerful woman with graying hair, joined their conversation. "Terraforming is quite straightforward once you understand atmospheric chemistry. We've been doing it for about 400 years now. Each world has its own personality. Some prefer warmer climates, others like it cooler." The Imperial officers stared at her in shock. Terraforming was legendary technology that their greatest scientists said was impossible. Yet this woman spoke about it like gardening. Inside New Terra Station, the impossible became routine. Children played in parks where artificial gravity let them run up walls and across ceilings. Market stalls sold fresh fruit that somehow grew in space, and the air smelled of flowers and rain despite being in a metal structure. "Our ancestors arrived here 900 years ago," Dr. Sohi explained as they walked through bustling streets. "They were refugees from Earth, carrying basic technology and big dreams. The original ship was designed for simple survival, but we've improved things a bit since then." She pointed to a massive fusion reactor, visible through transparent walls. Energy flowed through crystal conduits like liquid light, powering the entire station. "We solved the energy problem about 6 centuries ago. Once you have unlimited clean power, everything else becomes much easier." Thylan watched a child casually program a small robot using hand gestures and voice commands. The machine responded, instantly reshaping itself to perform different tasks. Technology that would revolutionize the Empire was being used as a toy. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered to his aide. "How can they advance so quickly when they've been isolated?" Dr. Sohi overheard and laughed gently. "Isolation was our greatest teacher. When you can't call for help, you learn to solve problems yourself. When you can't buy supplies, you learn to make everything you need. When you can't rely on others, you learn to work together. They passed a workshop where teenagers were building what looked like a small spacecraft. The materials seemed to flow and reshape themselves as the young builders worked, guided by AI assistants that appeared as glowing figures in the air. Every child learns engineering, medicine, and art, so he continued. We can't afford specialists when survival depends on everyone contributing. That's probably why we advanced so fast. Everyone thinks like a scientist. Engineer Taiho led the Imperial delegation into what looked like an empty warehouse. The HFY space was completely bare, except for a single platform in the center, and some strange crystalline structures along the walls. I thought you might enjoy seeing how we build our ships, Taiho said with an easy smile. He was young, maybe 30 years old, wearing simple work clothes that seemed to shimmer slightly in the light. It's nothing too fancy, but visitors usually find it interesting. Commander Thylan and his team gathered around the platform, expecting to see blueprints or construction equipment. Instead, Taiho simply placed his hands on a smooth control surface and closed his eyes. Beginning fabrication of exploration vessel, standard configuration, he announced to the air. Immediately, the crystalline structures began glowing with soft blue light. What happened next defied everything the Imperial scientists thought they knew about manufacturing. Silver liquid began flowing onto the platform from hidden vents, but instead of pooling randomly, it moved with purpose. The liquid metal formed shapes in the air, building upward and outward like invisible hands were sculpting it. This is impossible, whispered the Imperial chief scientist. Matter doesn't behave this way. What are you using for power? Taiho opened his eyes and shrugged. Just standard fusion generators. The programmable matter responds to molecular instructions. We've been using this technology for about 200 years now. As they watched, the liquid metal began forming recognizable ship components. Hull plating appeared first, curving into an elegant design unlike any Imperial vessel. Then internal structures grew like bones inside the shell. Power conduits, life support systems, and navigation equipment all taking shape simultaneously. The materials are self-repairing, Taiho explained casually, running his hand along the forming hull. If the ship gets damaged, the molecular structure remembers its original pattern and fixes itself. Very useful for long-distance exploration. One of the Imperial engineers stepped forward, his face pale with shock. Self-repairing materials? We've been trying to develop that technology for 800 years. Really? Taiho looked genuinely surprised. It wasn't that hard to figure out. You just need to encode the repair instructions at the atomic level. Took our researchers maybe 50 years to perfect it. The ship continued growing, and now the most incredible features were becoming visible. The navigation console seemed to pulse with organic rhythms, and strange crystalline structures were integrated throughout the control systems. What are those crystal formations? Thylan asked, pointing to the gleaming structures. Consciousness. Interface systems, Taiho replied matter-of-factly. The pilot's thoughts connect directly with the ship's navigation computer, much faster than manual controls, and the ship can respond to danger before the pilot even realizes it's there. The Imperial delegation stared in stunned silence. Mind-machine interfaces were theoretical concepts in their civilization, discussed in research papers, but never successfully implemented. As finishing touches appeared on the small vessel, Taiho activated the weapon systems for demonstration. Energy cascaded around strange barrel-like structures that seemed to bend light around them. These weapons can phase between dimensions, he explained, as if discussing routine maintenance. Instead of trying to punch through shields, they simply bypass them entirely. When you're isolated in deep space, you learn to think creatively about defense. The completed starship sat before them, built from nothing in less than an hour. It was beautiful, functional, and incorporated technologies. That should have been impossible. We had to get creative when we arrived here, Taiho said simply. No spare parts, no supply ships, no help coming. You either learn to build everything yourself, or you don't survive. Dr. Jiwon sat across from Commander Thylan in what looked more like a comfortable living room than a research facility. Books, art pieces, and scientific instruments were scattered together on shelves, creating a chaotic, but somehow welcoming atmosphere. "You keep asking how we advanced so quickly," Jiwon said, pouring tea from a pot that seemed to heat itself. "The answer isn't in our technology, it's in how we think about problems." Thailand accepted the warm cup, noting that even their tea service used advanced materials. The cup adjusted its temperature to his touch and seemed nearly weightless. "In the Empire, we have the finest research institutions and the most brilliant scientists. How could isolated colonists surpass centuries of imperial development?" Jiwon smiled and gestured toward the window, where they could see people of all ages working together in various labs and workshops. "Watch carefully. Do you see the difference?" In one workspace, Thailand observed something that would never happen in imperial facilities. A grey-haired physicist was explaining quantum theory to a group that included artists, children, mechanics, and farmers. Everyone was asking questions, suggesting ideas, and building on each other's thoughts. "In your empire, scientists work with other scientists, engineers work with engineers, and artists stay far away from both," Jiwon continued. "But some of our best breakthroughs came from unexpected combinations. A musician's understanding of harmony helped us design better fusion reactors. A child's question about why space is dark led to our dimensional weapon technology." Through another window, they could see a community meeting taking place in a large circular room. Hundreds of people sat in concentric circles with no obvious leader or hierarchy. Everyone seemed free to speak, from elderly researchers to teenagers. "Would you like to observe our evening council session?" Jiwon asked. "We're discussing improvements to our faster-than-light communication system today." They made their way to the meeting hall, where Thailand was shocked to see the diversity of the participants. Ship captains sat next to janitors, quantum physicists next to cooks, children next to their grandparents. In imperial society, such mixing of social classes would be unthinkable. "The current FTL communication array works well," an elderly woman was saying, "but the power requirements are still too high for small vessels." A teenager near the back raised her hand. "What if we're thinking about this wrong? Instead of sending signals through normal space, what if we could send them through the same dimensional gaps our weapons use?" The room fell silent as people considered this idea. Then suddenly, excited conversations broke out everywhere. Scientists began sketching equations in the air using holographic displays, while engineers discussed practical applications. "Brilliant," shouted a middle-aged physicist. "If we can phase communication signals between dimensions, they wouldn't be limited by the speed of light at all." Within minutes, teams were forming to test the idea. Resources were allocated. Experiments were planned, and a potentially revolutionary breakthrough was born from a student's simple question. Thailand watched in amazement as the organized chaos continued. "This would never work in the Empire," he whispered to Jiwon. "Too many people. Talking, too many different opinions. How do you maintain order?" "We don't maintain order," Jiwon replied with a grin. "We embrace creative chaos. When everyone can contribute, everyone does. When failure is just another learning opportunity, people aren't afraid to try impossible things." The meeting concluded with assigned tasks for dozens of volunteer research teams, all working toward the same goal, but approaching it from completely different angles. The peaceful tour of New Terra was suddenly interrupted by blaring alarms throughout the station. Red lights flashed as automated systems came online, and Commander Thailand felt his heart skip a beat. His military training kicked in immediately. "What's happening?" he demanded, looking around as humans began moving with calm purpose rather than panic. Captain Minho checked a holographic display that appeared in front of him. "Raider fleet approaching from the outer system. Looks like about 30 ships, probably Korthak pirates based on their energy signatures." Thailand's blood ran cold. Korthak raiders were notorious across the galaxy for their brutality and advanced weaponry. A fleet that size could devastate most planetary defenses. "You need to evacuate immediately. My ships can provide covering fire while your people escape." But instead of fear, Minho just looked mildly annoyed. "That won't be necessary, Commander. Admiral Heejin will handle this situation." Through the station's massive viewports, Thylan watched in disbelief as the human response unfolded. Instead of massive warships launching from defensive positions, small objects began emerging from hidden locations throughout the system. They moved like living things, flowing and adapting their formations as they advanced. "Those are our tactical drones," Dr. Sohi explained, joining them at the observation deck. Each one thinks independently, but shares information with the entire network. They learn from each battle and adapt their strategies in real time. The pirate fleet was impressive. Sleek destroyers and heavily armed cruisers that had terrorized shipping lanes for years. But as they approached the human settlement, something impossible happened. The lead ships suddenly stopped moving, hanging motionless in space as if frozen in time. "Temporal displacement fields," Minho said casually, as if discussing the weather. "We trap enemy vessels in accelerated time bubbles. From their perspective, they're moving normally, but from our viewpoint, they're nearly standing still." More pirate ships tried to maneuver around their trapped companions, only to encounter the human drones. But these weren't ordinary weapons. Instead of explosive missiles or energy beams, the drones unleashed something far more terrifying. "Gravity manipulation technology," Dr. Sohi explained, as they watched pirate ships being crushed like tin cans. "We can increase local gravity around enemy vessels until their hulls compress, but we don't breach them. The crews survive, just unconscious from the pressure changes." Commander Thylan stared in shock as his sensors registered impossible readings. Some human ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence, appearing to attack from multiple locations simultaneously. "Admiral Hiejin commands from a multi-dimensional vessel," Minho noted, following Thylan's confused gaze. "She can phase between normal space and parallel dimensions, coordinating attacks across multiple reality layers at once." The battle was over in less than 4 minutes. 30 pirate ships hung disabled in space, their crews alive but completely helpless. Not a single human vessel had been damaged, and no shots had been fired in the traditional sense. "Your people," Thylan whispered, his voice filled with awe and terror. "They're not just advanced, they're beyond anything we imagined possible." Admiral Hiejin's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. "All radar, vessels secured and crews stable. Medical team standing by for prisoner processing. Rehabilitation assessment will begin once they're conscious." "Rehabilitation?" Thylan asked. Minho nodded seriously. "We don't believe in throwing people away, Commander. These pirates chose their path because of desperation, anger, or poor circumstances. With proper education and opportunity, most can become productive citizens." The Imperial officer watched as human medical ships approached the captured raiders with the same care they would show their own wounded. This wasn't just military superiority. It was a completely different philosophy about life, conflict, and the value of every person. Over the following days, Commander Thylan and his team were given complete access to human society. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about civilization and progress. Their first stop was a school, but it looked nothing like Imperial education facilities. Instead of rows of desks and stern instructors, children played in workshop areas filled with tools, materials, and floating holographic displays. "Today we're building communication satellites," announced a teacher who looked barely older than her students. 8-year-old children worked alongside teenagers, assembling actual spacecraft components that would be launched into orbit by the end of the week. Thylan watched a young girl program a navigation computer using simple voice commands and hand gestures. The AI responded to her like a patient friend, offering suggestions and celebrating her successes. "In the Empire, children don't touch real technology until they're adults," he murmured to Dr. Sohi. "Why wait?" she replied with a smile. "Children ask the best questions because they haven't learned what's supposed to be impossible yet." The hospital visit left the Imperial delegation speechless. Patients recovered from injuries that would be fatal in Empire medical facilities. Tiny robots moved through bloodstreams, repairing damage at the cellular level, while AI companions provided emotional support during treatment. "We eliminated most diseases about 3 centuries ago," explained Dr. Sunmi, the chief medical officer. "Cancer, genetic disorders, viral infections, they're all treatable now." Most humans live about 400 years, though some choose longer lifespans. Thylan met a maintenance worker who was over 300 years old, but looked 40. The man had learned dozens of professions during his extended life and spoke about his experiences with the enthusiasm of someone much younger. But perhaps most shocking was the entertainment district. Instead of passive viewing experiences like imperial citizens enjoyed, humans created participatory environments that responded to emotions and imagination. Thylan found himself in a holographic forest that changed colors based on his mood, then in an underwater city that adapted its architecture to his thoughts. The environments read your neural patterns, explained Jisoo, their guide through the district. They create experiences tailored to what will bring you the most joy or help. You work through difficult emotions. The highlight of their visit was the Creation Festival, a monthly celebration where humans collaborated on projects purely for the fun of building something together. Thylan watched thousands of people working on a massive sculpture that existed in 11 dimensions, visible only through special viewing devices. "What's the purpose of this project?" he asked an elderly artist who was shaping light itself into flowing patterns. "Purpose?" The woman laughed. "The purpose is joy, creation, and working together. We build it because we can, because it's beautiful, and because tomorrow we'll tear it down and build something completely different." Nearby, musicians composed symphonies that incorporated the sounds of stellar radiation, while poets wrote verses in mathematical equations that somehow conveyed deep emotions. Engineers built machines that served no function except to create wonder, and children contributed ideas that professionals took seriously. Despite their incredible technological advancement, humans remained deeply emotional beings. Thylan observed couples walking hand in hand through zero-gravity gardens, families gathering for meals where they shared stories and laughter, and friends supporting each other through personal challenges. "You could be perfectly efficient," Thylan observed to Captain Minho. "Your technology could eliminate the need for human relationships, individual expression, even emotions. Why choose to remain so human?" Minho looked thoughtful. "Because efficiency without purpose is just sophisticated emptiness. We didn't advance our technology to replace our humanity. We advanced it to enhance it. What good is living forever if you don't enjoy the journey?" On their final evening at New Terra, Captain Minho invited Commander Thylan to his private quarters for what he called an important conversation. The room was simple but comfortable, with large windows showing the beautiful view of the terraformed world spinning slowly in space. "There's something we need to discuss," Minho said, pouring 2 cups of that self-heating tea. "Something that will probably shock you more than anything you've seen so far." Thylan settled into his chair, wondering what could possibly be more surprising than everything he'd already witnessed. "I'm listening." Minho activated a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed in different colors, with complex travel routes connecting them. "We haven't been as isolated as you might think, Commander. For the past 60 years, we've been exploring the galaxy quite extensively." The Imperial officer nearly dropped his cup. "That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected your ships. Our patrol networks cover every major system." "Not our ships," Minho said with a gentle smile. "We developed stealth technology that makes our scouts completely undetectable. They can pass right through your patrol formations without triggering any alarms." The map zoomed in to show familiar Imperial territories. Thylan recognized major military bases, trade routes, and even the capital system. Red dots marked locations throughout Empire space. "We've studied your civilization extensively," Minho continued. "Your military tactics, your social structure, your treatment of other species. We've visited over 300 different worlds and observed dozens of alien civilizations." Thylan felt cold dread creeping up his spine. "You've been spying on us." "Learning about you," Minho corrected gently. "We needed to understand our neighbors before deciding whether to make contact. What we discovered was concerning." The holographic display showed images that made Thylan's stomach turn. Imperial forces conquering peaceful worlds, enslaving entire populations, and destroying civilizations that refused to submit. These weren't classified military reports. These were events witnessed and recorded by human observers. We have technologies that could solve your energy crisis, Minho said quietly. We could end scarcity across your empire, revolutionize your space travel, and improve life for billions of your citizens. But we also saw what happens to species you consider inferior or threatening. The display showed the fate of the Zephyrian people, whose advanced medical knowledge had been stolen before their entire civilization was wiped out. The Kelthari, whose artistic achievements were plundered before they were enslaved. Dozens of each other species that had simply vanished after encountering imperial expansion. We're not hiding because we're afraid, Minho continued. We could defend ourselves, as you saw with the raiders. We're hiding because we hoped your empire might evolve into something better before we revealed ourselves. Thylan stared at the evidence of his civilization's crimes, feeling shame wash over him. Not all of us support these policies. Many imperial citizens believe in peaceful coexistence. We know, Minho said kindly. We've observed your protest movements, your reform politicians, your philosophers arguing for change. That's why we decided to make contact now with you. You represent the better side of your empire. The human captain leaned forward, his expression serious but hopeful. We're prepared to share everything with your people, our technology, our knowledge, our resources, but only if your empire agrees to fundamental changes in how it treats other species. What kind of changes? Thylan asked, though he already suspected the answer. End the conquests, free the enslaved populations, establish genuine diplomatic relationships with other civilizations instead of demanding submission, transform from an empire that takes by force into a federation that grows through cooperation. The weight of the decision pressed down on Thylan's shoulders. He was being offered solutions to problems that had plagued the empire for centuries, but the price was abandoning everything his civilization had been built upon. And if we refuse? He asked quietly. Minho's expression remained gentle but firm. Then we'll continue watching from the shadows, helping other species defend themselves against imperial expansion until your empire either changes or collapses under the weight of its own cruelty, Commander. Thylan stood alone in his quarters aboard the imperial flagship, staring at the encrypted communication device that would seal the fate of two civilizations. The weight of the decision crushed down on him like the gravity of a dying star. On his desk lay two message drafts. The first classified humans as a critical threat, requiring immediate military response. The second recommended unprecedented cooperation and fundamental changes to imperial policy. Both messages would change the galaxy forever, but in completely different ways. A soft chime announced Captain Minho's arrival. The human entered with his usual calm demeanor, but Thylan could see something different in his eyes, a sadness mixed with determination. You're leaving, Thylan said. It wasn't a question. Minho nodded. We've detected Imperial reinforcement fleets moving toward this system. Your military command became suspicious when you didn't report in on schedule. Through the viewport, Thylan could see the human settlements continuing their peaceful activities. Children still played in the orbital gardens, workers still maintained their impossible technologies, and families still gathered for evening meals. They showed no signs of panic or preparation for war. Aren't you going to defend yourselves? Thylan asked. We don't need to, Minho replied simply. Would you like to see our final capability? Before Thylan could respond, the human captain activated a small device. The space around New Terra began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The massive orbital structures, the terraformed planets, even the artificial suns started to fade like ghosts becoming transparent. Dimensional phase shifting, Minho explained as the entire human civilization slowly disappeared. We can move our entire society beyond normal space-time. From your perspective, we simply cease to exist. From our perspective, we're still here, just elsewhere. Thylan watched in awe and terror as 15 million humans and their incredible civilization vanished completely. His ship's sensors registered nothing. No energy signatures, no gravitational anomalies, no trace that anything had ever existed in this system. We've used this technology to protect other species from imperial expansion, Minho continued. his voice coming from empty space. Entire civilizations that your records show as mysteriously vanished are actually living safely in dimensional exile. The implications hit Thailand like a physical blow. The Empire hadn't conquered or destroyed those missing civilizations. They had been rescued by humans who had been watching and intervening for decades. "We could have done this from the beginning," Minho's disembodied voice said sadly. "But we hoped your people would choose cooperation over conquest. We wanted to give your empire a chance to become something better." Slowly, the human civilization began to reappear, phasing back into normal space as if emerging from a dream. The orbital stations, the planets, the people, all returning as if nothing had happened. "The choice is yours, Commander," Minho said, now visible again. "We seek no conflict, but we will not accept subjugation. Your empire can become our partner in building a better galaxy, or it can continue its path of conquest while we protect those who cannot protect themselves." Thailand picked up the communication device with trembling hands. He looked at his 2 draft messages, then deleted them both. A third message began to form on the screen, written from the heart of a man who had seen the future and knew that everything must change. "Imperial Command," he began typing, "humanity represents either our greatest opportunity for advancement or the end of our supremacy as we know it. They have shown us technologies that could transform our civilization and philosophies, that could heal our empire's wounds. But they have also shown us power that makes our military might look primitive." He paused, watching human children play in impossible gardens among the stars. "The choice belongs to us, but we must choose quickly. The humans have proven that in this galaxy, survival belongs to those who adapt, innovate, and never stop reaching for impossible dreams. The question is, are we brave enough to dream alongside them?"